Rebecca, tell me, what does Clark's return mean for the WNBA?
Well, I mean, it means a lot more people are paying attention once again. We know how much Caitlin drives ratings. We know how much Caitlin drives attention on the WNBA. And for her to come back and do it in that way was just ridiculous. I mean, I'm sitting there at the end of the first quarter when she had that 38-second stretch where she drained deep three after deep three after deep three. I was just sitting there thinking, I've been around this league since 1997. I have never seen that in a WNBA game. Have we seen players go on runs? Of course we have, but not like that. Not where a couple of the three-pointers are from 30-plus feet. It was an exhibition by her. After being out for 19 days to recover from an injury, couple that with the other passes that she made and some of the other plays, it was just ridiculous. It's not often that you're watching the WNBA or that I'm watching it and I'm like, wow, I've just never seen this before.
Congrats on your great performance.
Thanks.
Just want to let you know you have a huge fan base in Hong Kong.
Oh, I appreciate that. And hopefully I'll get there one day.
And today, there are 5 Hong Kong fans fly from Hong Kong to
No way. Oh my gosh.
And the hour is 22 hours.
No way.
Oh
my goodness. Well, I wish I could have met them.
Just want to say this, including me.
If you know them, tell them thank you for coming. That's incredible.
Yeah, so any plans you will visit Hong Kong with your teams in the future years?
Yeah, maybe we'll head to Hong Kong after the season. I mean, I certainly hope to go to Hong Kong one day. It's incredible to see the type of reach that we can have and how much people love basketball across the globe. So that's really cool. So if you know them, tell them I say hello and thanks for coming as well.
Yeah, thank you. Hope one day to show you around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Clark had 25 in the first half, not missing a beat. Finger roll there. Catch, shoot, 3. 7 made threes for Clark. Part of a 19-0 run as they go on to win 102-88, handing New York its first loss of the season. Clark with 32 points, 8 rebounds, 9 assists, and 2 blocks. That's just the 3rd game in WNBA history with those numbers. Welcome back, Caitlin Clark.
Rebecca, first of all, it's wonderful to see you, and I got to tell you, I mean, I'll talk to you and complain about the WNBA not helping me out with tickets, okay, at a later date. I'll talk to you about that at a later date. Right now, let me focus on Caitlin because the girl comes back, she does her thing, 32 points, 55% shooting, 7 of 14 from three-point range. I want to know, in your estimation, where do you rank her as a shooter in the WNBA, and considering her assist, where do you rank her as a player in the WNBA in just her first 1.5 seasons in the league?
Stephen, it's funny because I was listening to your last segment where you were talking about Steph Curry and you said he's the greatest shooter God ever created. On Saturday, Caitlin Clark certainly looked like that for the WNBA in terms of what she was able to do. As a player, she finished last year 4th in MVP voting.
Undeniable exists for a reason, and it applies to Caitlin Clark. She is just absolutely undeniable. And her return to the Indiana Fever showed it once again. It felt like a jolt of energy to the WNBA, obviously to the Indiana Fever, who looked like a completely different team, as Caitlin Clark put on a show that only she can in leading the team to a win over the New York Liberty, the first L for the Liberty on the season. Clark made those passes that are just gorgeous dimes. She hit the logo bombs, 3 of them in 38 seconds. The kind of things that just make you make incomprehensible noises. Like you can't control it when you're watching it because she's so exciting. She's the most exciting basketball player on the planet. She got help. Aaliyah Boston with big rebounds. Kelsey Mitchell was clutch late. Lexi Hull was everywhere. Sydney Colson even stepped up. But Caitlin Clark stepping back on the floor made all the difference in the world.
how many NBA players are more famous than Caitlin Clark? LeBron, Steph, absolutely.
Maybe Durant.
That's what I wrote down. KD, maybe. Outside of LeBron and Steph, she is the most well-known basketball player currently playing in the United States.
Yes. And I don't think that's close. I think I might have said this to you last year, that I thought the most famous basketball player under 30 was Caitlin Clark. I don't think it's particularly close. She is demonstrably and inarguably more famous than all of this generation's NBA stars.
I'm surprised Nick Wright was allowed to say that. But anyway, they're absolutely correct. We're not talking about skill level. We're not talking about any of that stuff. But there is no player in American team professional sports that has the importance of Caitlin Clark to the WNBA. Think about it.
This is a player this year is second favorite right now in MVP, right behind Nafisa Collier. You know, last year she was the best guard in the league. So, you know, in terms of the context of the history of the league, time will tell. But in terms of the impact she has had both on and off the court and you know, season plus, you know, it's certainly right up there. You know, we were talking with our crew after the game. You know, we got at least 10 more years of watching Caitlin in her absolute prime. And it's so exciting. It's so fun to watch her. She's certainly the most exciting player, certainly the most fun player to watch in the league right now. And we're just going to see kind of her legacy continue to grow as she has more performances like we saw on Saturday. And again, time will show how long is it going to take her to get that Indiana Fever team to a WNBA championship.
The mainstream media lies about the WNBA like they lie about everything else. And if you don't lie about the dump, if you tell the truth about pretend basketball, the diva of Dump Divas, Kat Engelbert, refuses to let you cover the league, which is actually a blessing, because those who cover the WNBA, they're constantly having to deal with players asking to borrow pesos. All kidding aside, I cannot stand the dump, but credit where credit is due. The ladies put on an absolute show yesterday afternoon on ABC. Not only was the basketball good, which is extremely rare in the WNBA, most of the time, the pretend basketball players in this league look like untrained professional wrestlers. But yesterday, the WNBA featured two teams who actually know how to play basketball, and they also proved where the focus of the league should be. Forget about Angel Reese. Forget about trying to fabricate this rivalry between Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. In order to have a rivalry, you got to have two stars. Two teams on, obviously, Caitlin Clark is the star of stars. She is on a level all by herself. There's not a player in the league that's capable of reaching a tenth of her drawing power. Therein lies the problem. This is exactly what I'm talking about. The WNBA and their pretend friends in the mainstream media, they have wasted the last 12, 13 months trying to make Angel Reese and the Chicago Bravado into something they are clearly not.
They say revenge is best served cold, but Caitlin Clark brought the heat. After sitting out 5 straight games, the Indiana Fever's brightest star stepped back on the court with one mission: take down the undefeated New York Liberty and do it with authority. From the second the game tipped off, you could feel the energy shift. The lights seemed brighter, the crowd louder, and every eye in the arena was glued to the player wearing number 22. She wasn't just back, she was dialed in, locked and loaded, and she made it clear early this wasn't going to be like last time. The last time these two teams met, the Liberty walked away with a win, but not without controversy. Late-game calls, momentum-breaking whistles, and moments that felt more like a scripted drama than competitive basketball left fans frustrated. But Caitlin, she remembered, and she came back with a score to settle. Within minutes of the opening whistle, Clark sent a message. She didn't need to say anything. Her game spoke volumes. With the ball in her hands, she orchestrated the floor like a maestro, whipping passes through narrow lanes and hitting teammates with no-look dimes that left defenders spinning. She connected with her go-to partner, Kelsey Mitchell, like they'd never skipped a beat. One play after another, she found the open player, set the tempo, and reminded everyone who really runs the show in Indiana. Then came the threes. Logo range, no hesitation. Splash! The crowd roared as Clark nailed a deep three over Breanna Stewart, one of the most respected defenders in the league. She stared her down for a half second on the way back down the court. Not disrespectful, but definitely a message. I'm here. And I'm not backing down. The Liberty tried to respond. They pushed the pace, they matched baskets, and even took advantage of a few questionable calls to slow the Fever's rhythm. But Clark wasn't having it. Every time New York made a move, she answered with something bigger. A spin move into a tough layup. A fast break assist across the length of the court. And then another three, and another. By the end of the first quarter, Caitlin Clark had already racked up 14 points and was just getting started. It wasn't just about the numbers, it was the way she controlled the moment. She was calm, fierce, and totally locked in. No rust, no hesitation, just dominance. The second quarter opened the same way the first one ended, with Clark setting the tone. She moved without the ball, reading the defense like a seasoned veteran, waiting for just the right moment to strike. Whether it was a backdoor cut or a skip pass across the arc, she was always a step ahead. Then it happened again. Trapped near the sideline with 2 defenders draped on her, she used a sharp crossover to slip out of pressure. And who was there waiting for her? Breanna Stewart? Again. But just like before, Clark didn't flinch. She took one look at the 2-time MVP, then calmly stepped back beyond the arc and drilled another 3. The crowd exploded, and even Stewart had to crack a smile. That wasn't just a highlight, it was a statement. Clark didn't just outscore the Liberty in the first half. She outplayed them, outpaced them, and outshined them. The scoreboard showed 53-50 at halftime, with Clark already sitting on 25 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists. But the box score didn't tell the whole story. This was a storm, and Clark was the eye of it. As she walked to the locker room, there was no fist pumping, no taunting, no theatrics, just the quiet confidence of a player who knows exactly what she came to do, and isn't finished yet. The second half opened with tension thick in the air. The Liberty, still stunned from Clark's first half performance, looked to regroup. Sabrina Ionescu came out aggressive, scoring on back-to-back possessions as New York tried to shift the momentum. But if they thought Caitlin and the Fever were slowing down, they were in for a rude awakening. It didn't take long before the Fever responded, violently, from beyond the arc. Kelsey Mitchell knifed into the paint for a tough and one layup, shouting as the ball dropped through the net. That single moment was the spark Indiana needed. Suddenly, the three-point gates burst wide open. Clark raced down the court and found Lexi Hull streaking on the break, setting her up for a clean look. Swish. Next play, Aaliyah Boston snatched a rebound and pushed it out to Mitchell, who nailed a deep 3 from the top of the arc. Then it was Clark's turn again. She received the ball near midcourt, took one dribble past the logo, and let it fly. Another bomb. Another roar from the crowd. By now, the New York Liberty weren't just playing defense. They were trying to survive. Every time they set up, someone from Indiana found an open pocket and made them pay. Grace Berger, Nalisa Smith. Even the role players were joining the long-range assault. And it wasn't just offense. Indiana tightened up on defense, forcing turnovers and pushing the tempo at every opportunity. At one point, with the Liberty trying to settle into a half-court set, Boston ripped the ball away in the post, igniting a fast break that ended with a clean bounce pass from Clark to a wide-open shooter in the corner. Splash! Again. The Liberty called timeout, desperate to cool the Fever down. But it was too late. By the time the third quarter clock ticked under 3 minutes, Clark had already tallied 30 points. But she wasn't done orchestrating. Out of the timeout, the Fever ran a picture-perfect play. Lexi Hull curled around a double screen while Clark dragged her defender to the opposite wing. With the defense scrambling to rotate, Clark launched a skip pass across the court to an open shooter on the left side. Catch, rise, fire. Another 3? With the scoreboard now showing a double-digit lead for Indiana, the arena had transformed into a festival. Fans were on their feet, chanting, clapping, screaming with every made shot. The momentum was no longer shifting, it had fully shifted. And it was building. Caitlin Clark, meanwhile, remained composed. There was no showboating, no taunts. She let her game speak, and her teammates followed that energy. Stephanie White, Indiana's coach, kept her rotations crisp and tight, giving Clark a brief rest late in the third, just long enough to catch her breath before returning to close out the quarter. And when she came back in, the Fever closed the third with the same force they'd shown all game long. Damiris Dantas knocked down a big triple with just over a minute left. Then, after a defensive stop, Clark threaded a pass through traffic for another assist. 3 quarters in, the Fever led by 9. The scoreboard said 81-72, but the game felt more lopsided than that. Indiana was dictating everything: the pace, the shots, the emotional swings. And Caitlin Clark was the conductor, pulling every string like she'd never been away from the game at all. Heading into the fourth, the question wasn't whether the Fever could hold the lead. It was whether the Liberty could do anything to stop the Avalanche. And right away, the answer came: no. Lexi Hull opened the final quarter with another 3. Then Mitchell sank one from the corner. The Liberty defenders looked exhausted. Their switches were late. Their closeouts were half steps. Their body language screamed what the scoreboard hadn't yet said. This game was over. But Clark didn't ease up. She continued to apply pressure, not with reckless shots, but with calm, calculated playmaking. She handled traps with patience, beat defenders off the dribble, and hit open shooters in stride. When the Liberty collapsed on her drives, she found Boston cutting. When they played up high, she stepped back and punished them with another deep 3. Around the 8-minute mark, Boston bullied her way into the paint, finishing through contact. The Fever's bench erupted. New York looked stunned, and with the clock ticking down to the final minutes, Clark delivered the exclamation mark, slicing into the lane, drawing a double, and dishing it at the last second to Mitchell for one last dagger from the corner. The crowd went wild. The Liberty were silent. This wasn't just a win, it was a statement. Indiana 102, New York 88. The streak was broken. The revenge was complete. And Caitlin Clark, she walked off the court having delivered one of the most impressive performances of her career. 32 points, 8 rebounds, 9 assists, 11 of 20 from the field, and a career-high 7 three-pointers. But more than that, she reminded the league who she is. As the final buzzer echoed through the arena, the scoreboard didn't just show a victory, it told a story, one of resilience, payback, and resurgence. Caitlin Clark didn't just lead the Indiana Fever to a win over the defending champions, she led them to something bigger, something symbolic, the end of one streak and maybe the start of another. The Liberty walked off the court stunned, their undefeated record snapped, their confidence visibly shaken. Meanwhile, the Fever players huddled around Clark, smiling, celebrating, and for good reason. They had just taken down the league's most dominant team, and they did it their way. In the post-game press conference, Clark sat at the podium with the poise of a seasoned leader. There was no gloating, no drama, no wild statements, just the honesty of a player who had missed the game and came back hungry. She was asked how she felt after logging such heavy minutes in her return. Her answer was simple: I feel good, strong, focused, energized. She credited her teammates, praised the coaching staff for giving her breathers at the right moments, and emphasized one key thing: there was still room to grow. That's what stuck with everyone listening. Even after scoring 32 points and burying 7 threes, she wasn't satisfied. She saw areas to improve. That's what leaders do. That's what greats do. Stephanie White echoed that same sentiment. She admitted they anticipated Clark would come out with energy after her time off, but even she couldn't have predicted a 25-point first half. Still, it wasn't just about stats. It was about the way Caitlin carried the team in the first half, then seamlessly transitioned into a facilitator in the second. That ability to shift gears, to play whatever role the moment calls for, that's what separates good players from generational ones. And in this game, Caitlin Clark reminded the league exactly which category she belongs to. The Fever's strategy was clear: keep the pace high, move the ball, and let the open shooter fire away. That identity had always been at their core, but something about this game unlocked a new level. With Clark back, the offense flowed smoother. Every possession looked sharper. Every player seemed more confident. The result? 17 made three-pointers, a blistering 49% from beyond the arc, and a total team performance that left the Liberty searching for answers. But even beyond the numbers, this night felt different. It felt like a turning point. After a rocky start to the season and a string of disappointing performances, Indiana needed this. Not just for the standings, but for their belief, for their chemistry, for their pride. They didn't just beat the Liberty. They dominated them on both ends of the court. They fought through questionable whistles. They adjusted on the fly. They took hits and hit back harder. And the face of all that resilience was Caitlin Clark. She wasn't loud. She didn't need to be. She let her play say it all. When asked about the revenge factor, she didn't gloat. Instead, She spoke about how proud she was of how the team played, how they trusted each other, how they pushed the tempo, and how unselfish their basketball had been. She didn't single herself out. She lifted up everyone around her. But make no mistake, the revenge narrative was written all over the hardwood. The Liberty came in undefeated. They left exposed. They were supposed to be the model of consistency. Instead, they looked outpaced, outplayed, and outcoached. And that's the kind of disruption Caitlin Clark brings to the table. She doesn't just shift a game, she shifts the whole narrative. The media had a field day afterward. Headlines splashed across every platform, proclaiming Clark's triumphant return. Analysts broke down her film, marveling at her efficiency, her vision, her leadership. Fans online flooded the timeline with highlights, step-back threes, full-court assists, and crossover after crossover. But perhaps the most telling reaction came from the Liberty players themselves. Many avoided the press, others gave tight-lipped answers. But the look in their eyes said more than words ever could. They knew. They had just run into a force unlike anything they were prepared for. And that's the Caitlin Clark effect. She forces defenses to stretch. She forces coaches to rethink. She forces entire franchises to adjust, because when she's healthy and locked in, there's no blueprint to stop her. As the team packed up and prepared for their next game, a rematch with Connecticut, the mood was different. Not cocky, not overconfident, but calm, assured, purposeful. They knew what they were capable of now, and so did the rest of the league. The message had been sent loud and clear. Indiana is back. Caitlin Clark is back. And if you come unprepared, you're going to get burned. The Fever have miles to go before the season ends, but this game, this one will be remembered. Not just for the score, not just for the stats, but for the night Caitlin Clark took her revenge and reminded everyone that the path to the top still runs through her. And that's something no team in the league can afford to ignore.